Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Indianaut Podcast, where we interview some of India's next best analytical and creative minds who are not only revolutionizing their own field, but at the same time transforming India's entrepreneurial ecosystem one step at a time. Our guest for the day is one of India's leading women entrepreneurs. She is the founder and CEO of SHEROES, a community platform for women, offering support, resources, opportunities, and interactions via their website and the SHEROES app. She is credited with building a platform and an ecosystem for women with over 20 million users. An Aspen fellow, she also sits on the board of Paytm Payments Bank. We have with us Sairee Chahal. Let us jump right into the conversation. Hi Sairee, I hope you're all settled in.
I am. Thank you for having me here. Hi, Gautam. Nice to see you here.
Thank you so much. Right, so I'll start things off, Sairee. SHEROES is now 20 million women strong, and
Yeah.
the credit goes solely to your leadership. So I wish to start things off by focusing on you and trying to figure out how your genius works.
Right.
SHEROES wasn't your first startup.
Yes.
Why don't you walk us through the journey so far, leading up to
Right.
the need you saw to launch SHEROES?
Right. So I think I've had a pretty unconventional journey in every sense of the word because, it's only in hindsight when I look at myself. I'm a single founder. I'm older. I didn't go to IIT. I didn't work in consulting or investment banking. But I got lucky as a fresher, you may say, because I got to taste internet and startups very early into my own career, and that's really what's gotten me here. And I totally believe that nothing ever goes waste. And I think the more diverse experiences you have in life, the richer your palette is, and the better your perspectives are. And I think that's what worked for me, really. But to be honest, Sheroes is really not my genius. I think it's riding a little bit of the India internet tailwind, and it's also a little bit of just everything is timing. So sometimes really luck plays like a huge role, and everything is not really your genius, because we all really work hard on lot many projects, and not all projects take off. And I think it's also the size of the market, the shape of the market, the depth of the market. All these are very, very important, a part of any business success. But a lot of my journey has really been one, doing things I deeply care about. So work should never feel like work, and it's never felt like that to me. Like, I'm still like the chirpiest, most annoyingly excited person in the room. In Friends, there's this guy who's Phoebe's dating. Uh, and
I think I remember the one. I
yes,
remember.
yes,
This is a
yes,
guest star. That was, I
yes,
think,
yes.
Alec Baldwin. Alec Baldwin,
Alec
yeah.
Baldwin, right? So
Yes.
like, so I'm occasionally that person. So so yes, I think yeah, I'm still very starry-eyed about all the things. Even today, I think I spend a great deal of my time just loafing on the internet, checking out products. So a lot of these things are just the opportunity that we have, and a lot of my careers really come out of playing, if I may say so. It's not really very structured to say this is my goal and I will get there. But I've always done things with a lot of heart, and I've also loved doing them. Like, I wouldn't trade those choices for anything else. But I got lucky. I got to build a company early on. I also got lucky by working with CEOs very early in my career. So when I was 25, 26, I was working with likes of Anand Mahindra, and it was a very different sort of, I used to work with CII, and I set up their Russia desk, and we took a delegation to Moscow when Vajpayee government was in power. So these are very unusual experiences when you're 25, and these are also steep learning curves. So like I always say, like, go for things that are very hard to do. Even if you fail, your learning will be so rich that it's really, really worth it. And so I got to do a bunch of things. Then, of course, I ran my own consulting company for about 5 years. And that was the time a lot of Indian internet companies were scaling. The first round of Series A in this country, for example, were happening. SEF was perhaps the only real fund around. So it was a different time. But I think doing a lot of these things really gave me one, it gave me a base to play with. It gave me a lot of perspective, which was very diverse, working with government, working with industry, working with internet, working, and of course I came from academia. So I had a really sort of rich and diverse perspective, which is very, very helpful as I, do things now in my life. Like nothing seems, undoable. Nothing, there isn't anything that, I or my team can't accomplish if we put our mind to it. So that's been part of, who I am, and I think those choices help.
That's amazing. That's amazing. But while you credit luck and you credit the Indian internet boom for the success of Sheroes, I think the crux over here is that you achieve product market fit, right? And while because Sheroes was able to do that, you were able to achieve so much success and you were able to receive so much coverage and receive so much traction, right, in the
Right.
early stages while that
Right.
boom was happening.
Right.
But this is even something which is quite notable because social networks all over the world are now experiencing the importance of online communities
Yeah.
rather than an
Yeah.
open platform.
Yeah.
And even Facebook over the past couple of years has redesigned its interface to focus
Yeah.
more on groups.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But Sheroes provided this platform design years ago, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Speaking about that product market fit,
Yeah.
much before any of the social media giants even thought about doing something like
Right.
this.
Right.
So, how did you reach this stage? Like, we would
Right.
love to hear the early stages of product development over here.
Right. So look, I think there's a couple of things we were very clear on. One, I don't think we were building a company that was all about uh, traffic. Look, we're building a company for women. So when we started, we knew that 80% of traffic on the internet is men. So our audience was very clearly cut out. We only had 20% to play. Now, if you're only going to work with 20%, you can't build range. You got to build depth, right? How do you build depth? You build depth with communities, right? So, and the other playbook we've always, looked at, and I still feel that's the best playbook, is the success of women-only communities in India, right? Look, women have different lives. Women have different aspirations for various reasons. I mean, it's hundreds of years of conditioning and patriarchal backlog that we are carrying. But the truth is, when women are coming online, they're looking for a very different experience. So we knew that on day one, and we said, if this was the case, 80% of internet traffic wouldn't be men only, right? And that was a big sort of stop sign to say, uh, do not build traffic, build audience. So let me give you an analogy. Traffic is just like thousands and thousands of people in the Shera Maidan, right? Like on the Shera day, it's just or political rallies, right? It's just traffic, right? So, but when you look at audience, it's really people sitting down in seats in a PVR and enjoying their popcorn, or people in a
Right,
club sitting at various tables and having a conversation. So these
right,
are very two different sort of use cases. One has a lot more depth, and one has a lot more reality. So there are two ways to build social networks. Either you can build a viral network, which is TikTok and Twitter, Facebook, or you can build a trust network, which is harder. Pinterest, LinkedIn, to some extent Reddit. I think Reddit is a blend, and it's obviously the older internet. But
right,
and now of course Clubhouse, classic. You know, you can build trust, or you can build like
right,
range.
right,
And I think that's a call we took very early on, that we're going to build a product that women care about and that matches their experience of what they expect from the internet.
right.
And nobody had done that before. So basically, we were perhaps the first Indian company to put trust before virality, which was against the norm, right? Because everybody's saying, go viral, give referral codes, make lots of noise, be everywhere. So for us, actually, the first 2 years, the platform was not indexed at all. Like, we were not even available in SEO. We didn't
Okay.
have a referral code. We didn't do any of the viral things. We actually kept it really tight and dark. It was like an underground basement of the internet. But guess what? When women came in there, they were safe and they could talk about difficult issues. They could get advice. They could, look for work. They could hang out. They could express themselves. So women were able to do things on Sheroes that were not available on rest of the internet. So that was really, and look, this construct is not new. This construct has existed. So if you go to a small village in India, you will see Anganwadis, you will see Asha workers, you will see Seva communities, you will see self-help groups. In towns, you will see kitty parties, you will see mom groups. These are all women-only spaces. So the behavior of women-only spaces exists. Okay, and then came WhatsApp groups. What did we do? We just added like a new product layer to it. So we didn't design a new behavior. We just productized an existing behavior into the new world. And this was also the time when women were coming online and women were sort of, getting to do things, more online. The first version of SHEROES was actually a jobs and careers platform. Our audience was just Metro. We were a small company, but India has changed. In 2017-18 were marquee years in the growth of internet post geo phases. WhatsApp happened, and then of course now we are all sort of looking at a very very different texture of the internet. So we were really the ones who brought our own original understanding to the table, because none of this existed. So a lot of our battle was just sort of doing things because we had conviction in it, and not because you know the product expert said this is you should drive traffic, or because for us having more traffic actually meant having more trouble, because more men were coming to the platform. We really didn't want that. Like, we got featured on the Play Store a couple of times, and it was a nightmare, to be honest, because we had to delete like 20,000 downloads.
I think this is the first time someone's mentioned getting featured as a nightmare.
Because what Play Store traffic is 80% men. Right. So like it's so that's the thing. When you're building a product which is very specific to a new audience, you don't have a playbook. So you have to do a lot of your own mistakes, and you have to do your own playbook, and you have to sort of put your, like, you really have to throw your hat in the ring to say we will not go viral, we will stay trusted. And now directionally we're doing more in that direction, and going that in that direction really helped us, I think, even business model wise.
I think it's absolutely amazing that you were able to capture real life scenarios, like real life communities, real life close knit networks, and just be able to replicate those and convert those to the internet, right? And truly create a virtual experience which isn't hindering in the real life circumstances, right? I mean, it's completely being replicated, it's completely being duplicated. So I think that's amazing. I want to focus on the word trust now, right? And more specifically, content moderation, right? Because SHEROES acts as a safe community for women and the users. So we have basically led a lot of criticism against Facebook or Twitter that they haven't been able to properly take care of hateful or negative content or even fake news. And given how SHEROES is a platform where women join communities of their interests, and these interests can be sensitive in nature, like relationships or parenting, where trust is a major requirement, like you yourself mentioned. So how is SHEROES tackling the problem of content moderation?
Right. So we had some very early calls on this. So one is, look, what causes debatable or controversial content, or fake content. News is the number one category. Okay. So there is no news on SHEROES. You're not allowed. You're not allowed to put up news. Basically, you can't put up news articles and start a debate. So SHEROES is not a social network for this. So what happens on Twitter doesn't happen on SHEROES.
Okay? I'm sorry I'm interrupting you, but can you make an exception, and can I join SHEROES?
Well, well, we can't make an exception, but we can give you a demo experience for sure.
Okay, sure. That'll be great.
Right. So the platform is built as a me space. Okay. So when a woman comes to SHEROES, there's enough news on internet, there's enough forwards on WhatsApp. SHEROES is for me as a woman who's not labeled as a wife, a daughter, a sister, mother, all those 45 labels like a woman carries on her back. She's there regardless of her labels, regardless of her age. All we care for is her aspiration. Okay. Our tagline says take charge. So that take charge is really like the journey to her dreams, right? And then her dream and her dream and her dream, and then it's like collective of dreams, right? It's an aspirational space. Look, we're a country with the largest gender gap and the largest internet base. So we got to like do something directionally there. So from a content point of view, there's no news, there's no religion, and you're not allowed to comment on any other person like in a judgmental way. So if you read the community guidelines on Sheroes, it's very clearly stated, and we're very honest to our community guidelines. They stand true for all. At the same time, look, I think platforms kept encouraging this behavior because it kept giving them down. The more controversial the news, the more traffic it generated.
Right.
But ultimately, it was all, I'm sorry to say, it was all shit, basically. It basically messed up the entire texture of social networks, right? Social networks became unsafe and unreliable over a period of time. We are very, very honest to one, uh, creating a space where there's no judgment for our users, okay, and no personal attacks of any nature are allowed. Absolutely, we ban a lot of users. We have high degree of content moderation. A lot of automation has been deployed. You can't post porn pics, you can't post scamming jobs, you can't post private numbers. There's a very high degree of, like, these have been very thought through. And the other most important thing is, you can build all these things if your users are not normalized to do the right thing. Then a platform's bound to fail. Like on Twitter, people will come back and attack you no matter what, right? Like, because that's a behavior Twitter didn't check like 5 years ago when first time it was happening.
And now it's difficult.
Now
it's difficult to inculcate.
Exactly. So
whereas with Sheroes, I believe what's happening is that people right from the start were told that these are our community guidelines, and if they could see anyone violating these guidelines, they would immediately get banned. So
right. Not just banned by the machine or by our moderators. There will be a user who will come and say, hey, you're a new user, let me tell you, this is not allowed, this is not the right thing, this is how you do it. So look, ownership by users is the only way to do this, right? Ultimately, users are using the platform, they put out the content. So we have this concept of model users, which is basically users who are really sort of contributing to the platform in a positive way, who are encouraging the right behavior, who will also support new users. What happens is, platforms are built in such a way that it's all about me. That matlab, mere ko likes chahiye, I want likes and comments and whatever, which is fine. But what it does is, it kind of takes away the connection, right? So we are built in a different way. We build like a community. So we're more like sit in a circle and talk to each other, look at each other's faces, and not like, me, and So we at the platform level think of this concept called net giving and net taking. So there are users who are net givers and there are users who are net takers. The ratio of net givers always needs to be like high, because it's like a gurdwara, basically. The donations always have to be higher than the spend you make for your seva, right? So it's very simple, actually. But the thing is, simple things are so hard, right? Like, people think ye nahi hoga, but the truth is, if you set the right incentives in place and you encourage users to do the right thing, it works. And I think we've always worked for connection, we've always worked for net giving, we've always worked where every woman can find her own journey. They're not competing with each other. This is not a competition. This is not LinkedIn ki matlab, my designation reads fatter than yours. This is really every woman on her own pursuit, because the truth is, all women at their own level face invisible barriers, and that's the universal connection, right? We all know what it feels like to be in your place. And then, of course, recently something happened that really kind of tested the veracity of our own assumption and our own work. When COVID started, we started working with Team Step One and Act to set up. So we put out a call for volunteers. Okay, so basically the Step One had a team of doctors doing telemedicine, voluntarily. And we put out a call on the SHEROES app to say, hey, we are building a base of volunteers to work on the COVID helpline. Please come and help. Okay, 400 women came to do this. Wow. Okay, and we've been running this helpline now since April, and like every single day, these women take queries, and we've like these are all volunteers. They're not getting paid. We don't even know who they are. Like we've never met, right? They're just SHEROES users. But the truth is, people stepped up, and that's what communities do, right? That's what real connection, real people do. And
Right,
that's why if you don't treat people like traffic, they will not come back to abuse your platform. And I think
right,
this works both ways. Companies monetize users, they obviously monetize their attention, they game their attention, they encourage this very anxiety inducing behavior, and the results there for all of us to see. How about we
true,
convert this into something more constructive? It might sound a little less sexy, but it's all right. I think it's got longevity and it's got depth,
right,
and it's
right.
and it it causes the person to stay much longer.
Right. I think another aspect that's coming to play over here is that because every user of SHEROES is aware that this is a place, this is a safe space where we can be vulnerable, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I think the good behavior, like you mentioned, which is being inculcated, that ensures that they would also want to ensure that this platform stays there for them as well,
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
This
So
the
very
same
protective of the
quality.
platform. They're very,
Exactly,
very
exactly,
protective, and
exactly.
and we encourage that to the T. So as SHEROES, for example, we have never done paid referrals to say go. We'll give you $10, go get another user. We've never done those things that take away the purity of the whole construct. And at the same time, what we realize is, like every Monday we publish this list of new users who have come on a helpline from new locations. And those locations are turning out to be like villages, really now, like small,
Right,
small villages all over the country. In fact, sometimes on Monday I tweet that out. And 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 look, we don't advertise in those areas, right? But somebody tells these people, and then they come and use the platform. So we feel that it's like bamboo farming. There's nothing to show for 7 years, right? Like, but then the roots have been set, and that's
right.
hard to do.
And I think that word of mouth, that actual trust, that trust signal that is coming from that word of mouth referral,
Yeah,
instead of it being a gamified thing where 10
yeah,
bucks is being given to
yeah,
every user, I
yeah,
think that's the crucial aspect over here.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So I want to focus on two things now. Let's talk about the SHEROES helpline first.
yeah.
So I actually have a stat over here that the SHEROES helpline was responsible for helping counsel more than 9 lakh women in 2019 itself, right?
Yeah.
And as you mentioned right now, during the initial lockdown period, the SHEROES helpline also saw a major uptick in traffic, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And with COVID-19 in general pushing internet usage a lot, what trends and patterns have emerged for SHEROES from users interacting with the platform as compared to the previous year because of the
Right.
pandemic?
Right. So three major trends here. One is, clearly rise in, cases of abuse and violence. I think for
Okay.
women, COVID meant, cutting off their wings. They can't step out. A lot of women live in very abusive marriages or have abusive families or have difficult sort of situations. So for them, it became really bad. So we saw a surge of, abuse and violence cases. And we also we're trying to like keep up and work with more partners and offer more support. Then the other thing that's grown is, so we run a remote work business line. We run a business called Mars by SHEROES, where women are certified remote professionals. They work from home, and that whole transaction goes through us. They work for large companies like Zomato, Bira, Delivery, IFL, Paytm, and so on and so forth. And what they really do is they run operational processes, so telesales and operations and so on and so forth. So that business used to be, it used to be a very staid business. It didn't have like any amount of buzz in it, but it was a great business. So I never sort of shut it down. In fact, I love that business. And what we saw was when lockdown happened, we were the only ones who had like a remote ready workforce. People who
Right.
were certified with computers, with internet, very smart women. And then of course, as a hiring for remote is always hard because you've never met the person, you don't know like how they work. And we have about 10,000 women today on that bench, and this year, by end of this year, hopefully that bench will become 100,000 women. So we saw an uptick in remote work. And like we've always been a big believer in remote work. We've always placed our bet there. And COVID kind of accelerated that. And it's good thing because women in all parts of the country, including difficult parts like northeast India, will now find more and more opportunities, and at least get connected to paid employment in some form. And second is, look, I think what COVID also did was it pushed people to increase their online usage. And for women, a lot of women have phones, a lot of women have been on WhatsApp, but they were really shy users, even if they had the apps and they had the UPI and the Paytm, but they never sort of used it. And now we are seeing that increase. And the impact of that is that everybody now is a micro entrepreneur. The other thing that's happened is obviously we know that formal sector jobs, manufacturing jobs and service sector jobs are not really growing, and they haven't grown in last so many years. So the resultant effect is that there is a significant growth in micro entrepreneurs. Just to give you some numbers, uh, rough estimates say there are about 15 million women for micro entrepreneurs already in this country, which means they're solopreneurs, they run a small
Right,
business. Each of
right.
these women employs like one more person, so about
All right.
30 million people, 35 million people in this sub economy. And estimates say that in about 3 to 4 years, these 15 million women will become actually 50 million women. Okay, so this will grow 3 to 4x. And this economy, and each of these people will employ 1 to 2 people. So it's almost like 150 million people economy, okay, that we're talking about, and that has gone digital. So there's a
Right,
huge impact that's going to play out. Next 3 4 years, we'll see a huge upsurge in, uh, micro entrepreneurial trends, tools and services for the segment, and of course, I think general rise in P2P commerce, general rise in adoption of internet, general rise in services women use online, general rise in skilling and related areas, general rise in creativity and expression. These are all segments that are kind of like,
right.
seeing a big uptick.
I
And
think I think we've already seen the emergence of social commerce in general, right? We've
yeah,
seen Indian
yeah,
startups also
yeah,
rise up with the ranks.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think Mishu is an example of the same. That
yeah, yeah,
social commerce
yeah,
is being
yeah.
implemented
Right,
heavily.
right. So what we're going to see now is actually a more mature form of social commerce. Look, social commerce in India is still very 1.2. you
Right.
know we're going to see like many layers of that, and many different models emerge. I think there are a lot of
Right.
models that are yet to be built in India that haven't been built, whether it's group buying, whether it's live streaming, whether it is segmented approach, curated approach. Women entrepreneurs, like one of the trends we're seeing on the Sheroes network is women entrepreneurs are building products, and then they're using more women entrepreneurs to sell their products. So it's a very
Mm.
insular economy that's kind of emerging. And I
Right.
think a lot of these trends will be India first trends. They're not trends that have happened in China. They're trends that will never happen in the US, but they
Right.
will be India first trends. And I'm very, very sure of that.
Right. Right. I think that's great. Let's focus on the future now. And
Yeah,
I have three very specific questions to ask you.
sure.
So I think let's circle around to the fact that you've talked about how smartphone adoption has helped accelerate the growth of Sheroes, right?
Yeah,
And now that so many first-time users are joining your platform,
yeah,
particularly from tier 2 and tier 3 cities, like you mentioned,
yeah.
what opportunities and challenges do you see in building products for these users in general?
Right. So look, I think some of the challenges are very operational. One is languages, right? Like today we're live in 5 languages, but I can totally see operationally we got to do more. And we have a stack that makes 17 languages available, but we haven't had, the heart to make all of them live, because it will just mean like, we're going to like,
Right.
going to be drowned a little bit. But so that's one. But the other opportunity is, we divide our core value in 4 parts: identity, network, well-being, and money. When any woman comes to us, these are the four buckets she's sort of looking at for herself. You know and I think we are going to see more depth get created in each of these categories. We definitely see a lot of product work ahead of us. We're also now stitching up the entire Sheroes ecosystem via a Sheroes stack, if I may say, that everybody else on the internet and due course will be able to use. Uh,
All right.
so yeah, so we definitely see these are some of the possible trends, and then of course I think uh, digital payments, social commerce, small credit, telemedicine. These are all sort of like they're all
Right.
hanging out there, and we will
Right.
see more and more innovation in these areas. But for Sheroes, I think our big sort of uh, role is now one to keep the range. We still feel depth is more important than range because it ossifies the user relationship with us. It gives us better track of data. It also helps users individually better. So the impact of, let's say, changing lives for 100 women versus changing content behaviors of 1,000 people, that's the toss up at any point in time. But
Right.
our call is very clear that let's go deep because it's just more long term.
Right. Right. Okay. Now I want to focus on another aspect, and that is the power of the network effect.
Right.
And Sheroes is a perfect example of that.
Right.
And that very specifically, the more there has been adoption of your product by women, the better the product has become for everyone because more users are coming onto the platform. There are more people to talk to, the more people to share their stories with and bounce off ideas against.
Right.
And now that you've developed a network of more than 20 million strong women, what future plans does Sheroes have in store for everyone?
Right. So look, the way Sheroes network is being constructed, so we have figured out what they call the acquisition engine, or organic acquisition engine. The network adds anywhere between 200,000 to 500,000 women depending on the month, every month, and we can get better it in some way. We can get to 1 million women, but more than that. Uh, at the top of it is a core asset, which is basically the communities, all the content, all the interaction, all the idea of safe space. And the legs of this network are now employment, entrepreneurship, capital, and these are things that we're building out now. So what we don't want to do is that Sheroes remains a content only network. We want Sheroes to be women's internet lifeline network, and that's what we're building. So when a woman comes to Sheroes, not only she finds a safe space, a sense of community, that she gets today, she might be able to find employment, she might be able to become an entrepreneur, she might be able to get access to credit, and tomorrow we'll see what else we can pull out. But these are three different, things we're betting on today, and they all go feed the network. They're good for women.
Right. Right.
So, like I always say, we're in the business of giving, we're not in the business of taking. So, women find work, women find, entrepreneurship, or, help to run a business. And of course, now, with financial products, we're directionally going that.
Right. Let's talk about financial products.
Yeah.
So I think it was A16Z that says that every company can be a fintech company, right?
Yeah.
And I think now that Sheroes has enabled short-term credit in the form of quick short-term loans.
Yeah.
And given how India's numbers on financial inclusion for women are worrisome, does Sheroes have future plans to offer more financial services, and what other kinds of financial services to women other than loans?
Yeah, we actually have a huge ambition there. And actually, the reason for our ambition is not A16. The reason for our ambition is the fact that women, this model has worked for women very well. So if you look at the entire microfinance sector, how did that sector grow? It grew on back of women paying back their loans. Always, always, always. I have a friend who heads the Microfinance Association of India, and he told me the return rates are like 99.5%. And I asked him what happens to the 0.5. He says basically we can't trace those women. They're basically dead, or they got, baad mein beh gaye, or like we can't trace them. But they didn't sort of default on their loans, right? So this behavior also exists. Women are great borrowers, and then we have amazing examples of Seva Bank and Mandeshi Bank and Self Help groups and microfinance. This playbook also exists, right? Again, we're not building a new playbook here. What we're doing is we are sort of adapting, transferring an
existing one in the real world into the digital world.
Yeah. Also, the traditional microfinance served rural women, which is great. We're not denying that. There is a market of about 200 million women who are peri-urban women, small town women who do not fall within the Citibank HDFC bracket, but they are neither microfinance or Jandhan bracket.
Right.
That's the bracket we serve today, right? Who comes to
Right.
SHEROES? That woman comes to SHEROES, right?
Right.
She runs a beauty parlor, she runs a boutique, she sells cupcakes on WhatsApp, she runs a tarot class, she offers tuition services, maybe she teaches White Hat Junior, maybe she's on Urban Club. Like there's a whole sub-economy of micro entrepreneurship, which is ballooning right now. Okay. And again, when you look at data from fintech, right? Women are less than 10% of all credit today. If you look at the big guys, capital floats and lending cards of the world or early salary, anyone you look at, the numbers
Right.
are really small.
Right.
What
Right.
we're really doing is we are building for our own audience. We are building micro savings, we are building micro loans, building micro insurance. We are just completing the picture for her. When we say identity, network, well-being, and money, this is what we're doing.
Right. I think in the future we can see SHEROES turning into a completely instead of a content platform, just an enabling platform, right?
Actually, we're setting up a new company. It's called SHEROES Money.
All
And
right.
it's already underway. You will see a launch hopefully in next few months.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. But right, just circling around to what I was mentioning. So basically, if you're a woman, you're able to get jobs, you're able to talk to people about certain sensitive issues, you're able to get access to credit, you're able to get access to basically just get validation for your entrepreneurial ideas. I think SHEROES
also markets, also go to market.
Exactly. Yeah. And besides that, social commerce. So I think SHEROES is every large successful startup in India for women exclusively in a very micro format of the sorts.
Yes, absolutely. So depth over range, right?
Depth over range. Definitely. That's amazing. Right. I think I just have one last question for you for the day. Yeah. And this is and we've officially dubbed you an Indianaut, right? And this is something we ask every Indianaut who comes onto this show. Yeah. What advice do you have for other aspiring entrepreneurs or Indianauts?
I would say it pays to be a little deaf. Like, don't listen to too much advice. Your life is yours, right? Nobody has that view. There is a point of view, which is something I can share in hindsight, but there's a viewing point. What you can see in your life ahead of you is something nobody else can see. So, if you are convinced about something, or if you have conviction about an idea, don't be afraid to try things out. Look, even if it doesn't work out, you will still be like a wiser person and a much confident person, as opposed to somebody who's always listened to other people give them advice. The truth is, advice is always secondhand. It's always not great. So do your own thing.
Sure. Well, that's amazing. Thank you, Sariee, for joining us today. This has been a really amazing conversation, really insightful, and we wish you and SHEROES the best of luck for the future.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for this episode. The Indianaut Podcast is available on YouTube, Apple Music, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook to receive all updates on the upcoming episodes. We'll see you in the next one.